Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Evelyn Mantilla for Access Health Connecticut. I want to first say thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and partake in the information that we are sharing with all of our partners and the folks who are on the front lines working to enroll folks into benefiting from their health insurance. I want to first give you a couple of housekeeping items. Again, welcome. I want to let you know that participants are automatically muted once you're logged in. And I ask you to please keep your audio muted for the duration of the webinar. Also, in the event that you're using the phone rather than the audio from your computer, I ask that you mute that as well. We are going to take questions that will be reserved for the end of the webinar. I ask you to please hold your questions. No, actually, you can type the questions in at any time, and you can do so in the chat box, which appears at the bottom right-hand corner of the control box. At the end of the webinar, our presenters will be able to provide answers to your questions. And lastly, if you find your audio component experiencing technical difficulties or you wish to call in instead, please switch from audio to phone call in the control panel. You will be given a phone number and access code to dial in and listen to the webinar. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to get started. Today's webinar is on immigrant eligibility, enrollment, and outreach. And we call it part 2 because this is the second webinar that we offer on this subject, and we have added even more information than what we had in the first webinar. As I mentioned to you, my name is Evelyn Mantilla, and I am your moderator for today. We have 2 presenters, although we will have even other individuals that may be able to answer questions at the end of the webinar. But our main presenters are Alexandra, or Ali Doe. Yes, I pronounced it correctly. Thank you, Ali, who is a policy analyst for Access Health Connecticut. Additionally, we have Gloria V. Machado, who is a customer relations specialist here at Access Health Connecticut. First, I'm going to turn it over to Ali, who has a general message for all of us, and we will then continue with the webinar. Thank you so much, Ali.
Thanks, Evelyn. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much again for joining us today. As an organization, we wanted to just communicate a very important message now in light of the recent election. It's important for everyone to know that for the time being, we are doing business as usual. Nothing has changed for us here at Access Health. Our mission continues to focus on increasing the number of insured residents in the state. We're going to continue to do everything in our power to provide our residents with the help and service that they need and that they deserve. We always want to remind individuals that the enrollment period ends on January 31st, 2017, and that we encourage them to continue to take action and enroll or re-enroll in coverage. If there is anything that changes in the future, we'll deal with it and adapt to it like we always do, and keep our customers' best interest in mind. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Ali. All right, let's get started with the information that we have for you today. Ali, I will turn it back over to you again, and we will continue.
Thank you, Evelyn. So this is just a reminder, again, that open enrollment began on November 1st. We've been having a lot of traffic through our call center. I know that Gigi has been taking a lot of your questions so I think it's about the last 2 weeks, a little bit longer than that. The deadline to enroll for 1/1/2017 is December 15th of this year. And open enrollment ends on January 31st, 2017.
As part of our agenda, we're going to discuss the following items in immigrant eligibility, as well as immigrant enrollment with tips and resources. We are going to talk to you about the outreach that Access Health Connecticut is conducting in the immigrant community. And toward the end, we will discuss opportunities to partner with Access Health Connecticut and, of course, take questions at the end of the webinar. So first, immigrant eligibility. Ali, once again.
So we wanted to start, and I'm sure that a lot of people are familiar with these concepts about who is eligible for coverage with Access Health Connecticut. We offer individual and family plans to all Connecticut residents who are lawfully present and will be lawfully present for the rest of the plan year. So at the time of application, it's very important for individuals to understand that what they are using to prove their lawful presence, and we'll get more into the documents and the requirements around the documents a little later, but for them to understand that their lawful presence must be valid through the entire coverage year that they're requesting coverage for. So for example, people right now that are applying for coverage, we would need to be sure that their lawful presence was through the end of 2017. Lawfully present people are U.S. citizens by birth or naturalization who have a valid current U.S. immigration status or who are not currently in prison or jail. Four important things that we feel you should know. The first to start with is that immigration information provided on our application through Access Health will only be used to verify eligibility for coverage. We can't stress enough that the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has stated that it will not use this information for immigration enforcement purposes. And I know anybody that came to our community conference remembers the conversation that we had about fear, fear of any adverse action being taken against people. We want to be able to temper that as much as we can and let them know that you can provide your information to us and that we're here to help no matter what. The second point is that signing up for insurance through Access Health Connecticut or through Husky Health or Medicaid does not make someone a, quote, public charge. The exception for that is people receiving long-term care in an institution at the government's expense. The third point is that undocumented immigrants are not eligible for coverage, but they can apply on behalf of their eligible dependents. And those who are not applying for coverage for themselves will not be asked about their immigration status. So again, we're trying to encourage people and let them know that there's no opportunity for an adverse action to be taken against them if they are applying on behalf of their eligible dependents. And fourth, but I would say most importantly, it's important to have immigration documents ready when enrolling for coverage. And we'll get into that a little bit later in the webinar. So the next couple of slides just have a table here that shows you the different statuses that are eligible for coverage through Access Health Connecticut. I'm not going to go through each of them individually, but this is just to let you know that the information is here and you can go through to the next one, Evelyn. And I think that there are people who are familiar with most of these statuses and things like that. We can go to the next one too. So immigrant access to Husky Health. In order to qualify for Medicaid, so Husky A and D or CHIP, Husky B, most individuals who fall into any of the categories listed on the previous slides will need to meet a 5-year residency requirement. And then below here, we do have a list of the individuals who are exempt from the residency requirement. I think most often what we see is pregnant women and children under the age of 19, and then also refugees and asylees. And I know that there has been, I just want to take the opportunity to recognize that there has been a lot of talk going on about refugees and asylees and proving their status and things like that. So we are aware that that particular population has struggled either to get health through us or to get health through Husky. So we're working constantly to try to make that process a little bit easier. We do have options for mixed status families. Mixed status families can use the same application to apply for advanced premium tax credits or APTCs and cost sharing reductions or CSRs through Access Health, or to apply for Husky Health. Family members who aren't applying for health coverage, again, will not be asked about their immigration status. And individuals in mixed status families won't be denied coverage because a family member or household member who's not applying has provided his or her immigration status. Just a little information about undocumented immigrants. They're not eligible to obtain health coverage through Access Health Connecticut, but they are eligible for an exemption from the individual shared responsibility requirement, or also known as the individual mandate. So they're not subject to the tax penalty from the IRS. The map here shows the community health centers throughout the state that provide health coverage to all residents of their service areas, regardless, I believe, of their immigrant status. So I just wanted to bring this up specifically. Category 33 refers to the regulatory reference about green card workers. The deferred action for childhood arrival, this came up at our community conference and also even earlier on our first webinar. So some of the, DACA is only one category of deferred action. So there are some deferred action statuses that might, I don't want to say definitely would, but they might qualify for coverage through us. But DACA, deferred action for childhood arrival specifically, does not qualify for coverage through Access Health. Again, DACA individuals are not subject to the individual mandate and are not required to have health insurance and cannot have the tax penalty imposed upon them. But we do just want to emphasize that they should file for an exemption with their taxes using form IRS form 8965, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but I do believe it's Section C, something like that, the type of exemption that they file for, but it is very easy to figure out which exemption. And one of the questions that we got at the community conference was, you know, it's all well and good that they're not subject to the individual mandate, but where can they get care? And the map on the previous slide of community health centers, things like that, are definitely good places for them to go to be able to get care. And in Connecticut, we're lucky enough to have several community health centers across the state. So next, we're going to talk about enrollment and some tips and resources. So here you see information about our 3 enrollment channels. Our website is available 24/7 to provide guidance and tools. Our full-time call center is also there to answer any questions that consumers have and can help them enroll over the phone. And then we also have our lovely CACs and brokers who are available year-round to provide enrollment assistance. And all of our assistance from Access Health and our partners is free. This slide just gives you a list of the enrollment centers that we have. New Britain and New Haven are operated directly by Access Health Connecticut, and their hours are there. We also have 3 city enrollment partners in East Hartford, Norwich, and Stamford. We also offer assistance in multiple languages. And that includes the full application to enroll and our Learn More site that is available in Spanish. More about our assistance in multiple languages. The call centers that we have also partners with a service to provide assistance in over 110 languages. Our enrollment centers can provide in-person assistance in Spanish. And we have several brokers and CACs that can provide assistance in a number of different languages across the state. So just a couple tips for navigating the application process. I know that a lot of people who are helping others to enroll through the application, you know, certain parts of it are very straightforward and other parts are not so. So we just kind of wanted to emphasize some of the immigration points in the application. So it is important to complete all the relevant immigration fields in our application. And even if a field is labeled optional, entering all of the information that you can will make it go faster. It will ensure that your eligibility determination is accurate, and it will help prevent the consumer from needing to verify his or her identity later on. So we do really want to emphasize, especially during this OE and in advance of it, we really want to emphasize consumers being prepared with all of their relevant immigration documents before starting their application. I know that there are times where people can have several different documents and have to look through them and things like that, but we would rather have them be prepared with more of the documents than not have them at all, so that the application can be completed and the eligibility determination can be as accurate as possible. There was a point, and Gigi, you might be able to speak to this a little bit more, I'm not sure. There was something that was brought up to me directly about in our application selecting naturalized versus U.S. citizen, and that if you were a naturalized citizen, but if you select U.S. citizen, it's actually the way that we verify your information, there's going to be an inconsistency, because if you were a naturalized citizen, you were not born in the United States. But when you attest to being a U.S. citizen, we're going to try to verify that you were born in the United States. So that's automatically going to create a verification issue. Yep. So we just wanted to point this out for everybody, that when either if you're filling out an application yourself or when you're aiding someone in filling out an application, to understand the distinction between the two, because I know that most often, I think that a lot of people want to just go with U.S. citizen, but it is important to kind of understand the two different ones. And there is a description here of naturalized citizen versus U.S. citizen. And again, being sure that the citizenship status that you select is correct can help alleviate any potential identity verification issues. And we know that a lot of those, that verification is a very difficult and lengthy process. So if we can eliminate those identity proofing issues at the beginning, that's always helpful.
Yeah, just because since their verifications get verified through the hub, the hub is going to verify that they were not really USA citizens, they were naturalized, so they want to see that naturalized certificate number. So they're going to ask for those verifications.
Yep. Yeah. So I hope that that's helpful to everyone, because it has come up on a couple different occasions. So next we have just an overview of some of the documents that might be needed to enroll, depending on what document the individual has, and it may contain an alien registration number and also a card number. I know that there are some documents that don't have a card number, so understanding what is required from each document is important, and this is really meant to serve as more of a resource, so I won't go through each of them individually. So just again about disclosing immigration status, the application is really meant to only ask for information that's needed to determine eligibility for health coverage. Disclosure of a social security number for a person that is not seeking coverage for themselves must be voluntary and used only to determine eligibility for the applicant or beneficiary that is requesting coverage. Information provided by applicants will not be used for immigration enforcement purposes, and individuals will not be denied coverage because a family member or household member who's not applying has provided his or her immigration status. So this speaks to the naturalization or naturalized citizen versus U.S. citizen point about some identity verification issues. So when the information in the application doesn't match the data sources or the hub trusted sources that we use, it can create some identity verification issues that end up falling on the consumer for the responsibility to prove any identity, any gaps in information that we have about their identity. So the most common types of identity verification issues are related to income, citizenship, and immigration status. Consumers can find out if they have an identity verification issue by checking their eligibility notice that they receive after they've submitted their application. So from my understanding of the function of how our notices work, what's going to happen is there will be one notice that the individual gets after applying that tells them what they've enrolled in, there will be one that tells them what they're eligible for if they haven't enrolled. But if they have enrolled, it'll tell them what they're enrolled in, give them any information about their HUSKY. That letter, I think, can be used as proof of coverage for a certain amount of time. And then if they were enrolled in a QHP, it provides information about their plan, whatever kinds of cost sharing reductions or tax credits they're eligible for. And then in a separate notice, that's when they will get information about their verification issues, whether there was an inconsistency that they have to resolve, and that notice is going to ask them to provide documents. So the eligibility notices are very important. The information that's requested in the verification notice is very important, and making sure that any document that is going to be submitted is consistent with what's asked for in the verification notice. So if the verification issues continue to exist for the 90-day reasonable opportunity period that they have to submit documents, if they don't submit documents, then the specific issue may risk changes to their financial health, so their CSRs or APTCs, or their eligibility for coverage through Access Health at all. Consumers with unresolved verification issues will be sent warning notices before their eligibility is adjusted. We have 2 notices that go out in advance of the after the verification notice. One will be at the 60-day mark, so they have 60 days left in their 90 days, and then at the 30-day mark also. And then is there one that's, I forget if there's one that's even closer. So they're going to get a lot of mail that's going to ask them over and over again for the same things. The other thing that they can always do is contact the call center for even more information about either what is still existing or what's still open, and possibly even some information about what they can provide. Each notice does include a list of acceptable documents, and identity verification issues for Medicaid and CHIP individuals are resolved by the Department of Social Services. So next we're going to talk about some immigrant outreach efforts that we're taking on here at Access Health. Andrea does this so much better than I do when she talks about our naturalization ceremonies. But we do conduct outreach at naturalization ceremonies for immigrants in Connecticut. You can see the flyer here where congratulations on becoming a citizen, and gives those individuals a little bit more information about what we offer and what the opportunities are that they have here. We've attended 19 ceremonies since May, and we've reached out to about 1,200 new citizens.
An important point to make, Ali, on the naturalization ceremony participation is that we also encourage those who are just becoming citizens to reach out to their family members, their neighbors, and the people, the rest of the folks in the community.
Yeah, that's a great point. These are just some photos here from some of our outreach at naturalization ceremony. So we do also partner with community organizations across Connecticut to reach immigrants and reach their families. We are attending community events that reach immigrants, such as the Haitian Health Fair in Stamford and the Rehoboth Church Community Day event, which reached the Jamaican immigrant community in Hartford. We are always open to new opportunities for reaching out to hard-to-reach populations, I should say. So if anyone has any other ideas or can think of an event that we should definitely be at, we're more than open to those suggestions, and you should definitely be encouraged to share them with us. And some more about the opportunities to partner with us. So you can check out our community partner website at learn.accesshealthct.com/community. And there you can sign up for our email list to stay updated on anything that's going on here, any new updates to our system, things like that. And we also have several educational materials, I believe that will be made available on our website if they're not already. These may look familiar if you did attend our community conference in October. We were passing out copies of all of these, and we do have most of them available in English and in Spanish. Again, you can also invite us to your events. We will do presentations for your community members or your staff. Set up a table at community events so that we can pass out some of those educational materials that you just saw. And you can email outreach@accesshealthct.com or fill out the form on our community partner website to get us at one of your events. You can also become a community partner. The contact information is here for how you can outreach to our team and get involved in our community in a community partnership. And it looks like we have some more webinars coming up. First, I believe this one is next week on Monday the 21st, Reaching and Assisting the LGBTQ Community. The second is Wednesday, December 7th. We're going to talk about financial health, and I know that that will be a good one because one of my coworkers is doing that. and then an overview of the Access Health Connecticut Consumer Decision Support Tool, which we should be launching shortly on Monday, December 12th. And you can sign up for them at our learn.accesshealthct.com community website. I think this is the most important slide that's in this entire webinar. So if you find that you need support, the contact information for the individuals here at Access Health is available to you. So Gigi, who has joined us today so graciously, and you can contact her if you have customer-related issues, for example, information regarding effective dates, anything for special enrollments or qualifying life events. And if consumers need help with plan selection, they can always contact a broker, and there are numbers there for contacting them directly. And then we have Dave and Darwin, who are here in the room with us. Do you guys want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Hello.
that can handle any non-consumer related issues. So these have to do with verifying enrollment outcomes, proper documentation, calculating income and MAGI, and other things like that. And their contact information is there for you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ali. That information was very clear, concise, and very well presented. I want to first state the fact that the presentation that you see today, as well as a full recording of the webinar, will be made available to everyone through our Access Health CT, learnaccesshealthct.com /community website, so that if you missed any part of it today, or if you have anyone in your staff that think you could benefit from this presentation, you will be able to review it again, and that's a wonderful way to continue to get the information out. Now, for the question and answer session, I'm going to see, we do have a couple of questions here. What if someone changes their immigration status? When can they apply for coverage through Access Health Connecticut, and does it make them eligible for a special enrollment period?
So this is Ali. I can speak to that. If someone experiences a change in their immigration status that makes them newly eligible for coverage through Access Health, I think that that's one of the largest things that we see. Individuals going from perhaps maybe a not lawfully present status to a now lawfully present status, they are eligible to apply, and if it's outside of open enrollment, it does qualify them for a special enrollment period.
Which is what, the 30 or 60 days, right? Within the first 60 days of their special enrollment.
Yep. So if the instance that their immigration status changes from that day that it's granted, they have 60 days after the fact to apply for coverage. Unfortunately, there are certain special enrollment periods that offer a window ahead of whatever qualifying life event, but for this particular one, you will need your immigration documents demonstrating the change. So it will just be a post-status change special enrollment period for 60 days.
Great, thank you. We have another question from one of our participants. It's a long question. I won't read the entire thing, but it's about an issue that we are aware of. The call center representatives and the in-person enrollment center staff trained about the 5-year lawful presence rule and the exceptions to it, especially, as they relate to refugees and asylees. Can you add a little bit more to that?
Yeah, so from a training perspective, we do know that we need to enhance that process for our call center, and we're working to provide them with even more resources so that when an individual who is a refugee or an asylee is applying, they can make it much more easier for them to move through the application. But we are aware of the issue and appreciate it being called out here as well.
Absolutely, great, thank you. Other questions? Don't hesitate to type any of your questions on the chat box on the lower right-hand side of your window. And I do have another one here. It's a pretty simple question. Is there a way to leave the Social Security number blank if they don't have one?
So this question has come up a lot, and I know that we've put it out to our operations people. I believe that, so what I should say is if there's an individual who's not requesting coverage, they should not have to provide their Social Security number unless in the case of the family is married and is applying for financial help. Sometimes that can get a little funky with leaving that Social Security number section blank. I think that oftentimes what will happen is it will generate an identity verification issue. So I don't know if you guys have, anyone else in the room has encountered that.
Yeah. So let's say one of the spouses don't have a social, the other member won't qualify for tax credit just because that person doesn't have a social. So that's more like a Gigi issue because I have to manually enter all the tax credit in, plus the cost sharing, and then the effective date.
Okay.
But then again, if the member is not requesting, if they are requesting coverage, they need to have a social because if they're not lawfully, they're not 5 yearly lawfully here, they're not going to get granted a QHP with tax credit just because they don't have a social. The carrier needs to have a social.
Right. And I know that there is an option in the application where you can have good reason for not having a Social Security number, and that may also create a verification or an identity VCL as well.
Yep, it'll say applying for SSN, that they had a visa. There's a lot of drop downs in there.
Yeah. So I guess the short answer is they can leave the fields blank, but they should also be aware of the other the drop down options as well and the impact of all of those. I think that we might be able to put together something that we can send out to everyone that has to do with, when you select this drop down, this is probably what's going to happen to your application. Yeah. That's an easy thing.
And even if they apply for the social, later on when they do get their card, they could update it. They could do a demographic change.
Oh, right. Yep.
All right, terrific. Makes sense. For the benefit of our participants, I'm actually going to go back to the Get Support slide and keep it up there so that you can have the time to understand who is talking to you here today and who you can reach out to for further questions. One last question I have here is, we've already mentioned it, but let's talk about what languages are we able to handle to serve our consumers. Does Access Health send out notices in languages other than English?
Well, from the call center's perspective, from the broker's perspective, we handle English and Spanish. The call center does have what they call a language line, in which, what will happen with the language line is if the language is not covered in the call center, say Mandarin Chinese or Korean or something like that, they call out with the consumer, with the CAC on the line to the language line, and the language line will provide an interpreter. And the language line interpreter is not an insurance expert. All they are is a language expert. So it becomes a longer call for everyone involved because you have to, the call center rep needs to explain perhaps to a language line worker what a deductible is so that they can translate it into whatever that language is. But the language line does cover, I believe, 37 non-English, non-Spanish languages. So it would be pretty hard to find a language that we could not service the customer.
Terrific.
And the second part of your question?
The second part is, do we send out, mailing and notices in languages other than English?
Yeah, we have, but it's only English and Spanish.
Yeah, it's only in English and Spanish.
Unfortunately, if it's one of those 37 languages, we do not. And that's where we would hope that if someone speaks Chinese, they would try to go to a community center or something where someone could sort of read it and interpret it for them.
Understood. Yeah.
Isn't in one of those documents have it like written in different languages as well that they could probably reach out to one? I don't know if this shows phone numbers or.
So on our website, we do have a document where there were new regulations that came down. I think this might be what you're referring to. Well, we added that in the top 15 languages in Connecticut, so that when an individual logs on to our website and sees that it's only in English and Spanish and has no, doesn't understand how they can otherwise get help, there is a tab on our website now that I think it says language services maybe, and it actually is it rolls through all of the top 15 languages and says languages services, so that an individual who sees that it's not available online in their language, they can actually click that, and it will have a tagline in their language that they can read and understand, and it will instruct them to contact the language services line, where they'll be able to get help in their language. So we are trying to make sure that I'm sure that there's plenty of people that don't realize that we have the language services line. So that was kind of just more of an effort to make sure that people that do speak languages outside of English and Spanish are aware that those services are available to them. And one just plug about notices. We're aware that our system generates a lot of them, and that people sometimes feel inundated with them, but we do just want to emphasize their importance, because even if an individual isn't clear about what's in the notice or has questions, they should always try to call the call center or go into one of our enrollment centers or visit with one of our community enrollment partners, so that we can help them understand what's in the notice and what's going on with their coverage. More than anything, I think that the understanding that if you receive a notice in the mail, there's usually something going on, or it's something that you should know about. So if we can, the more that we can encourage people to open their mail and read through them and make the call if they need to, the better.
Terrific. And I can add one other piece. As I work very closely with everyone who does the outreach out in the communities, Access Health is constantly trying to provide information in as many languages as possible. And right now we're in the process of translating our main brochure, which is handed out to community partners as well as in events that Access Health Connecticut participates, and as we get out into the communities. And we're translating that brochure in particular. It does a great job of walking you through what you need to do to enroll and where you can go for help. And we're translating it into the top 13 languages that are spoken here in Connecticut. So that is another very helpful resource as well.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, I'm going to encourage everyone. One of the things that we always want to do is we want to know how we did in our webinars. We want to make sure that the information that Access Health Connecticut is providing you is timely and is of help to the work that you do. So I want to point out to the fact that I just posted a link on the chat box that I encourage you. Let me just say that I beg you to take 1 minute of your time and click on to let us know how you felt about today's webinar. That information helps us provide a product of higher and higher quality as we move along, and we particularly want to know, is there anything that you feel that we missed? Is there anything that can be done better? Of course, we encourage you to look for the announcements of all the further webinars and participate in them as well. So again, on your chat box on the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you have a reminder to fill out the SurveyMonkey survey. Please take a moment, click on it, and let us know how we did. And with that, I don't have any other questions that have been posted. So I want to really take another moment and say thank you for taking the time to be part of this very important conversation. I want to thank Ali and Gigi and the rest of those who came in, David and Darwin, who took their time to come in and make sure that we could answer questions and we can provide the information in as detailed a manner as possible. Thank you for taking the time to be part of this conversation. And with that, we will bid you goodbye. Thank you so much for your participation. We really appreciate it.